The May 21st, 2019 meeting of the Ways and Means Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ansello. Here. Mr. Baroff. Here. Chairman Delahany.
Here.
Mrs. Draw.
Here.
Mr. Felder.
Here.
Ms. Cayley.
Here.
Mr. Mafucci.
Here.
Mr. Marinetti is excused. Mr. Morelli. Here. Mr. Rockow.
Here.
Ms. Taylor.
Here.
President Carbone.
Okay. Will Legislator Baroff please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rochelle Bell, Manager of Planning for Monroe County's Planning and Development Department, will now give a brief overview of the 2020 through 2025 Capital Improvement Program as it pertains to the Ways and Means Committee. Thank you, Ms. Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You should all have received a copy of the County Executive's recommended 2020-2025 CIP. The Monroe County Planning Board reviewed the County Executive's proposal, held a public information meeting, and prioritized budget year projects before the CIP being submitted to your honorable body. At the full legislature meeting in June, you'll set a public hearing for July and then, upon favorable review, vote to approve the plan. There are no funding approvals associated with taking action on this referral. We're going to take just a few moments to look at the proposed capital improvement program in terms of funding sources, which are county, district, enterprise, state, federal, and private, budget year funding, which is 2020 is the budget year, new projects, most of those are introduced into the CIP in 2025. The 6-year program is summarized by department and in total on Table 1 on pages 2 and 3 of your CIP. Proposed total program funding is $405 million. Total county funding is over $242 million in the proposed CIP, and that's 60% of the CIP total funding. There are two kinds of county funding, bonding and county cash. Projects that use county cash are paid for out of operating funds and do not impact the county's debt. Compared to the adopted CIP, the proposed CIP reflects a 6.2% decrease in county bonding and a 55% increase in county cash. Total district funding is used by Pure Waters program and accounts for almost 13% of total CIP funding. This year we were able to move district funding to district cash in many cases. Enterprise funding or user fees are for the hospital, airport, and solid waste, and it accounts for almost 9% of the total CIP funding. Enterprise funding increased by almost 35% from the adopted CIP, mostly due to the airport's needs that became more clear after the big renovation was done. State and federal funding is used by MCC, the airport, facilities, DOT, and the Sheriff's Program. State and federal funding account for almost 19% of the capital improvement program and is approximately 7% higher than last year's program. There is $1.9 million in private funding in the proposed CIP. A private developer is planning to pay for part of the East River Road project. Table 2 on pages 4 through 7 of the CIP lists 65 capital budget projects in priority order as determined by the Monroe County Planning Board. 2020 capital projects will require just over $45 million in county funding. Table 3 on page 8 summarizes the estimated debt service during the program years based on existing debt, authorized but as of yet unissued debt, and funding proposed in the proposed CIP. Now I'm going to highlight a few departments with new projects or interesting funding or schedule changes. The airport program begins on page 25 of your CIP. One new project is introduced in 2023 and involves relocating runway 28 landing threshold. There was also some rescheduling of the overall program to accommodate two projects that had to be moved to 2020. Those are the taxiway F rehabilitation and terminal improvements. Airport funding schedules change according to FAA priorities. The Department of Environmental Services has 3 programs in the CIP. The Pure Waters program begins on page 41. As was anticipated last year, 2 projects at the Van Leer Water Resource Recovery Facility involve sizable district funding in 2020. Beginning this year, general improvements in each district are funded with district cash and will not impact the district's debt service payments. The Facilities Management Program is on page 47 of your CIP. The Hall of Justice Sallyport is new to the CIP with funding scheduled in 2025. Funding for the county building at 111 Westfall and the county office building was pushed out to later years to balance projects that had to be moved up to 2020. The Solid Waste Division program has a new project this year, Gloria Drive Landfill Improvements, discussed on page 53 of your CIP. This project is implementing a plan identified in the 2015 and 2016 CIP to improve the landfill cap and leachate system. The Parks program begins on page 54 of the CIP. The general rhythm for county parks is to update a master plan and then design and implement recommendations from the master plan. These recommendations usually include accessibility improvements, trail rehabilitation, lighting upgrades, and similar improvements. Funding for the Grease Canal Park Master Plan improvements are added to the proposed CIP in 2025. The Department of Transportation Highway and Bridges program begins on page 61, if you're following along in the CIP. 2 new bridge projects are proposed for 2025, Vintage Lane Bridge over Round Pond Creek and Turk Hill Road Bridge over Thomas Creek. Information about the Department of Public Safety 6-year program begins on page 84. There are 2 projects identified as new in the public safety program, a communications infrastructure replacement project and the improvement and expansion of the Emergency Operations Center. Public Safety's 911 logging recorder replacement project was pushed out to 2025 because the equipment was recently upgraded and enhanced. And then finally, the Sheriff's program begins on page 91. Previously programmed projects are moving forward as planned. 1 new project is introduced in 2025, the jail mainframe reconstruction project, which will be designed to replace existing facilities that have met the end of their useful life, both from a physical and programmatic perspective. I'll be happy to take questions when you get to this item on the agenda. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for that presentation. Okay. Are there any questions? Okay. No, actually, we'll wait till the agenda items. Okay. My mistake, I apologize. Okay. Right here. Are there any speakers signed up for the public forum?
There are not.
Okay. Is there anyone here who would like to address the committee at this time? Okay. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. You have the minutes from the April 23rd, 2019 meeting before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. Next item on the agenda is new business. Mr. Clerk.
Referral 19-0120.
Moved by Legislator Draw, seconded by Legislator Rockow. Is there any discussion? Legislator Baroff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the administration, I have a number of questions, and I will attempt to keep them in order, but I'll be bouncing around a little bit. First off, I just want to ask a question about the Monroe County Water Authority. On page 9, it indicates that they are unsure if they're going to be bonding or not, and as a result, they requested that their information be included in an appendix. Is this a typical process with the Water Authority or not, through the chair?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, it is typical for the Water Authority to be included in the CIP in this way. They don't necessarily know what their program is going to entail and if they'll be bonding in a timely enough manner to include or exclude them. They only need to be in the CIP if they are bonding. So we have just discussed it and decided to include them. However, we include them as an appendix, whether they're bonding or not, because their bonding does not affect our debt service or our rating system, or debt rating.
Okay, and through the chair of the administration, does the Water Authority typically bond, or, I mean, at some point in time, or normally they typically don't bond?
They typically don't, in my experience. I think this year they might be because they are adding a project that is a fairly significant value.
Yes, through the chair, no, it's $20 million in 2020 for the Genesee County Water Supply System Phase 2.4. And I was going to ask about that, which is, what is that, through the chair? The project.
Through the chair, it is the expansion of the water system into Genesee County.
Thank you. And I presume in the long run, we end up getting paid for that through the chair.
Through the chair, that's my understanding.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. I was wondering about that $20 million. Okay. Going to page 18 for MCC. Just in general, I'm using this as an example because some projects that are pushed out, not in 2020, this one in particular, for the, we'll take a look at the Applied Technology Center STEM Edition. It doesn't actually kick off until 2024, and I'm assuming that the identified debt service payment does not occur until 2024. Is that correct?
Through the chair, correct.
Okay, so in other cases where anything, and there's multiples, where it's not for 2020, we don't have to worry about the debt service until it actually comes due, correct?
Through the chair, correct.
Thank you so much. On page 42, in regards to the Pure Waters District, and I discussed this with the administration during the EPW committee meeting, and I requested if we could find out how much of a percentage of the available district cash is being utilized for these cash capital projects this year. And do we have an answer to that through the chair?
Mr. Chairman, at this time, what I have for Pure Waters is the aggregate balance sheet. I do not have the Rochester District specific figure. Typically, that is prepared after the county's financial statements are complete, and the Controller's Office is actually just wrapping those up this week.
So through the chair of the administration, we would know that prior to the full legislature meeting, correct?
Mr. Chairman, in all honesty, I'm pushing them along. I believe we'll have this by ledge. I will offer an off-the-cuff response. It's probably going to be around 9%.
Excuse me, 9%?
Correct, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Through the chair of the administration, do we have a number for the total amount of cash capital plus district capital that's being spent on projects this year for all of the CIP?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, can you clarify the question again? Did you want to know for each year, or for all 6 years, or for the budget year?
Just to keep it simple, just for this budget year, because through the chair, it's my understanding that even though we're using, in projects that are utilizing cash capital this year, next year we might bond the same project. So I'm just interested in what we're utilizing this year, through the chair.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So Table 2 gives you the county total, but as you're pointing out, it doesn't differentiate between cash capital and bonding.
Correct.
And I don't have that number with me, but I can get it to you.
Thank you. I'd be interested in knowing the percentage, the number of cash capital, the amount of cash capital being utilized overall, but particularly that's the amount that's coming from Monroe County's operating budget, and then the amount that's coming from the various Pure Water District operating budgets as well, if that's okay. Thank you. I added up, in my mind, the number of cash capital projects in total, and I got 3 in Information Services, 4 in Department of Parks, 2 in Traffic Engineering, 3 in Public Safety, and 1 in Sheriff. Are those, am I correct to think that those are the only ones, the cash capital projects, not including Pure Water Districts, but from the county operating funds? Is that correct? For a total of 13?
I didn't. I didn't quite catch your list.
Actually,
but-
legislator, can you restate the question,
Sure.
please?
I went through the CIP and identified as best I could, you know, assuming I did it correctly, the cash capital projects taking funds out of the county's operational funds, so not including the Pure Waters. And I came up with a list of 13 cash capital projects. I just wanted to make sure I was correct in that through the chair.
I have 14 on my list here.
Shoot.
3 in Information Services. Oh, sorry, 3, Mr. Chairman. 1 from Facilities, 4 from Parks, 2 from Traffic Engineering, 3 for Public Safety, and 1 for the Sheriff.
Yep. Facilities is the one I missed. Thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
Appreciate that. I just wanted to clarify, when in the last committee meeting I was at before EPW, we were talking about the Sally Port at the Hall of Justice, and I was wondering why that had come up before, and I'm pretty sure I remembered it in regards to a acceptance of a grant, and so it would not have been in the CIP at that time, and so I want to make sure the administration knew that that was on me, so my bad. On page 57, so with the Parks Department, the one project related to Highland Park, I wanted to ask a question about that. For the master plan improvements, it's coming. It's peaking in 2021 for $800,000. Could you describe what that $800,000 is going to go towards in 2021, through the chair?
Chair, I believe it is, at least a portion of it is going to help with the Children's Pavilion that is planning to be built around that time. It's our portion. A lot of it is being fundraised by volunteers as well.
So through the chair of the administration, the total of $940,000 costs that we have for 2020 and 2021 doesn't reflect the total cost that we expect it to be more that we get through funding from private sources?
Correct.
Okay.
Actually, I believe, I think through the chair that our portion was, that we pledged was $600,000 towards the Children's Pavilion. I'm not sure what the other 200 is for, actually.
Well,
But the total amount, through the chair, the total amount of the Children's Pavilion, I believe, is in the $2.5 million range. And yes, it's being raised by a group from the community, the conservatory.
okay, so through the chair of the administration, we're in effect assisting with
Correct.
the financing of the whole project?
Yes, through the chair.
Okay, thank you very much, I appreciate that. On page 64, we don't have to worry about it too much, but am I correct to think it has to do with the culvert replacement projects, and normally we're seeing capital savings or operational savings in the nature of $5,000, $2,000, whatever dollars, but on that one, it's about $60,000 of savings, and that's simply because of maintenance does not need to be performed on things that have been replaced. Is that correct, through the chair? I'll take a break.
Through you, Mr. Chair, could you repeat the question since I was in the other room?
Sure, not a problem. On page 64 of the CIP, there's the operating cost savings for the culvert replacement product is particularly high, and $60,000 of operating cost savings. And I'm just assuming that's because you don't have to spend the money on materials and time to repair culverts that are in decay because they've been replaced. Is that correct, through the chair?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct, and the result is that's applied to multiple culverts per year.
Correct. And then finally, through the chair of the administration, that 60,000 operating savings, is that an annual saving?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Legislator, do you have any further questions?
I'm done now, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Legislator Mafucci.
Through the chair to the administration, I found Rochelle Bell's comments to be very interesting and very valuable, but I really couldn't write down a lot of what you said. Is it possible to get a copy of your comments?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I would be happy to make a copy available to the legislature.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, it was very, very interesting. Through the chair, I have a couple other questions. And if people go to page 51, and it's easy, it's right in the middle of the book. This is just an example of one of the items. The HOJ Sally Port. Through the chair, if you look at the bonding life over 10 years, it doesn't really come close to the total cost of the project. So through the chair, where does the additional revenue come from?
Mr. Chairman, the database used to calculate debt service on these project costs are programmed very specifically. As the legislator noted, this is a relatively small debt service payment for a $3 million project over 10 years. That is because the database calculates an average of the debt service for each of the 6 years presented in the CIP. And since this project is kicking off in 2025, the final year, there is really only 1 year of debt service impacting this calculation. If this project were to be programmed in 2020, the database would have averaged the debt service payment over the entire 6 years, so that figure would have been higher.
Thank you. One more question for clarification through the chair to the administration. So I will then assume that when, and you got to be careful assuming through the chair, if debt service doesn't add up to the total cost, are there any items where other revenue is used but not listed in the book?
Mr. Chairman, it's kind of an open question. Does the legislator have an example that I can react to?
Well, if you go down to the Civic Center complex reconstruction, same type of thing, 10 years, doesn't come close to the total cost of the Civic Center. So that project, is there other revenue being used to finance that project? Through the chair.
Mr. Chairman, without looking at a specific year's annual operating budget, I'm going to answer the question no. It's really, this is a building accounted for in the internal service fund, so the internal service fund would have the users of the Civic Center complex charged for their proportionate share of use. So there may be departmental chargebacks, and it could so happen that the particular department being charged has a reimbursement stream from some other state or federal agency. So in theory, there could be reimbursement not shown on this particular page. We do try to account for some of that. There is a Westfall Road reconstruction project that has attributable revenue, and the controller and I both worked at social services, and we talked about this. We know that DHS does receive reimbursement for maintenance in lieu of rent, and we try to capture that as attributable revenue. So there's an example of a building cost and internal service fund charging back its user departments. In this particular case, DHS receives reimbursement, so we're trying to reflect that in this book.
Thank you. Through the chair, I have one final question, just again for clarification. So if there are current projects that are using funds from other places, those funds would not be listed in this book currently.
Mr. Chairman, we're just thinking out loud here at the table. I suppose it's possible. We really endeavored to capture all the revenue sources that we felt were applicable to this document.
Through the chair, just one final question. So then if there would be other sources, they would be listed in the particular item?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to say yes. Just for an example, I flipped over to the Airport Authority, and I just flipped over to Airport Utility System Improvements. It caught my eye as having attributable revenue. So basically, airport projects are generally programmed as a county project run through the Enterprise Fund, the Department of Aviation. So while they are projects performed by the county and the cost is incurred by the county, the Airport Authority does reimburse the Enterprise Fund for any local shares. So that's why in this particular capital project we see attributable revenue equal to the debt service payment, resulting in no net operating budget impact on the county.
Thank you.
Legislator Baroth.
Through the chair of the administration, I have a couple more questions. On page 85, the new project, the Public Safety Communications Infrastructure Replacement Project, it initiates and only is in 2023. What infrastructure is being replaced through the chair?
Through the chair, one of the planning for this was, right now we are constructing 4 new sites in the project, 2 of which are, we are co-locating with American Tower, and this potentially, in a few years, we may look for another site that is county-owned to get off the American Tower and paying the lease rent.
Okay, so through the chair of the administration, essentially creating a new, I presume, tower.
Through the chair, that's the intent at this time.
Okay, thank you. And through the chair of the administration, on page 92 in the presentation, it was mentioned that the new jail mainframe reconstruction was to replace facilities that had reached the end of their life from a physical and programmatic perspective. What do you mean by a physical and programmatic perspective, through the chair?
Through the chair, the mainframe of the Monroe County Jail was built in 1968, so it's about 50 years old now. Most of the electric, plumbing, and HVAC systems have never been replaced. In 2015, LaBella Associates gave us a master plan of things to do with all of our facilities. We've gone through and done a number of those. But the mainframe has really reached its life expectancy. We have cells that are rusting through. We have pipes that, we've had several pipes burst. We've lost some of our heating and cooling systems on some of the office areas, in which we found ways to work around it, but the mainframe absolutely needs to be replaced in the very near future.
And so through the chair of the administration, but I'm not going to say it's okay, but it's acceptable to wait till the 2025 for these improvements to be, through the chair?
Through the chair, it's not acceptable to wait till 2025 to do this. We have a proposal that'll be going in front of the legislature in June, in which we would like to move some cash capital into a CIP fund in order to start, actually update the Labella Associates study to see what we actually need right now. The Labella study was started in 2013. It was published in 2015. The average daily population for jails across the country has decreased dramatically. So we'd like to look to see what exactly we need as far as housing space, as far as programmatic space for rehabilitation programs, for classrooms, for some of the endeavors that Sheriff Baxter is trying to get done to keep people out of the jail. So we'd like to look at that and see what our actual needs are. We believe that the plan that comes out will be much smaller than the plan that came out in 2015, which was going to be quite the costly building.
Okay. So through the chair of the administration, then we can anticipate some changes to this particular item on the CRP, correct?
Through the chair, that is correct.
That sounds awesome. Thank you. And finally, one last question. During the presentation regarding the medical examiner's office, it was mentioned that the medical examiner represents 3.3% of the CIP bonding, but it's only 2% higher than adopted program. Could you please explain what you meant by that through the chair?
Through the chair, so those numbers are just meant to give you a perspective of each department's impact on the overall program and how it changed, the change from the adopted. So 0.3% of the overall program is the size. It increased by 2% from last year, which really, well, maybe I should let the department answer, but to me what that's saying is, given the stress and strain on technology, the way technology is moving forward, the way the drug crisis is impacting their office, it seems very reasonable.
So to clarify, through the chair, then that the 2% increase is over what we approved last year?
Correct. For you, Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Thank you. And finally, that leads to the follow-on question. It may be in here someplace, and if so, I apologize for not spotting it. What is the overall percentage increase of the CIP bonding over last year?
Overall, through you, Mr. Chairman, the overall increase of the CIP is 5.2%.
5.2%. That's the total CIP, so it's going to include bonding and cash capital, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And if I may, through you, Mr. Chairman, getting back to your cash capital question, were you asking about county, the total for the program of county versus bonding versus cash?
Essentially, yes. And then to go with that, the total number of the district cash as well. But that was a separate thing.
Okay, for each year? Because I found my table. I can tell you now.
Well, to be honest, I was actually thinking about just this year and last year, because I'm interested, frankly, in the increase in cash capital over time, because I do know, and I'm sure Mr. Franklin can correct me if I'm wrong, is that that's been a goal to increase cash capital over time. But I also know it hasn't really happened until the last year or so. And so while I'm appreciative of the fact that we're going that way, I'm concerned about it from the Pure Waters District point of view. And that's really, to be totally open, that's my concern and interest.
Got it. Okay. Through you, Mr. Chairman, yeah, I have totals, but not breaking down the Pure Waters difference. And so I'll get that to you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Legislator Kaley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the administration. In looking at the, the improvements of the county office building and the reconstruction, last year versus this year's, under, it looks as if total cost for 6 years in 2000, in the last CIP was 9 million, and now the total cost is estimated at 8.1. So to the administration, because that's the exact figure that was budgeted for 2019, is that 900,000 actually being spent this year in last year's CIP?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, that is authorized funding?
Right, and so through the chair, does that accommodate for the lowering of the cost when you take it out to the 6 years of 8.1? That's what I'm asking.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the 2019 amount of $900,000 completely accounts for the reduced cost down to 8.1 million for the total 6 years.
Okay, thank you. And then, Mr. Chairman, through you to the administration on the green accomplishments with the county office building reconstruction, having continually to own a house that's over 100 years old. I know what the cost is and how you try to be green. Could you tell me, since I won't be here, and I'm asking for a little information ahead of time, will any of the buildings in Monroe County ever get green roofing? Through the chair? In my lifetime?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we do currently have green roofs at MCC downtown campus. I think there's 3 individual, is that right? 4 individual green roofs sections, as well as the Civic Center Plaza, which when you're standing on it, it doesn't seem like roof, but it's actually the roof of the parking lot.
Thank you. You're right, I forgot about that part. Will, then through the chair, indulge me, will this building ever be capable of holding a green roof? Since, as well as my concern is, as with MCC, the Civic Center, this roof, we're surrounded by blacktop, concrete. It does definitely help with runoff. Would we see this in the future on this building?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, it's a complicated question because of the age of the building and the structure of the roof that has to hold that weight, as well as this being a historical landmark building. So it's something that would have to be evaluated.
Okay, thank you. And then, just indulge me one more time, because it is evaluated out through the chair on the funding streams. I did not notice it last year, and I probably should have. But when the project is concluded that involves private funding, will that person be named that indulged us with private funding? That's on page 3. And it's actually under 2021.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, that name would be referenced at the time of the referral.
All right, thank you. And then, again, through the chair, in 2021, it's 200,000, which is private funding, and then out the 1,650,000. Through the chair, is this the same person, or are these 2 different donors, or multiples thereof? Through the chair.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the collection of the money from the private developers is being done by the town of Henrietta as a result of development along that corridor. And there will be an intermunicipal agreement that will be set up. We're in the process of negotiating that right now to extract that money from the town, or collect it rather, to be applied to the project, both for the design and the construction portions of the project as it comes along.
Thank you, and then that just made me think of a different question then. So, through the chair, the entity or entities would then at that point be listed? This is money coming through Henrietta to the county, or I'm very unfamiliar with this. Just asking you to explain it for me through the chair.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the money is being collected from each of the developers along East River Road as the development occurs. And rather than each of the developers building small components for mitigation of their traffic elements, it's all being rolled into our project so that we can do it in a coordinated and efficient way, rather than trying to put all their pieces together when we come along to build our project. So the town is collecting the money parcel by parcel as the development occurs, and we have agreed on the rate at which they are collecting the money, and we'll be applying that to the mitigating traffic elements through the corridor that need to be built at the time of our project. So they will be paying for the improvements collectively and applied to our project.
Thank you, and then finally, again, they will be named through the chair. They will be listed as what their contribution was or what their payments were through the chair.
Through the chair, the town will have that information. I guess we can make that part of our agreement if need be, but I don't know at this point. There's approximately 25 parcels, so it'll be a whole bunch of different developers, and they may be participating at the time or not. That depends on how the development occurs in the next 3 to 5 years.
Thank you. That's basically it. I just say that I think it would be important that as a developer comes on and pays whatever fees or whatever is considered private, that that be added to the record. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 19-0121.
Moved by legislator Rockow, seconded by legislator Ansello. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 19-0122.
Moved by legislator Ansello, seconded by President Carbone. Is there any discussion? Legislator Mafucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This really is just a comment, and it's kind of a redo from last night. These SRO officers are just fabulous additions to a school. As a former superintendent of schools, I was very pleased to have one on board, so I commend the county for doing this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 19-0123.
Moved by President Carbone, seconded by legislator Taylor. Is there any discussion? Legislator Baroff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the administration, I just noticed that there's a bit of a distinction between Irondequoit and Greece, and one is asking for overtime and mileage, and one is asking for overtime. Any reason why Greece doesn't have any requests for mileage? Through the chair.
Through the chair, Jennifer Curley from the Sheriff's Office. Guess they just didn't request it. We didn't request it either.
Okay, so that was Greece just made their choice. Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Okay. Legislator Morelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the administration, the grant is for $134,000, yet the money for Greece is the amount of $26,335, and the amount for Irondequoit is $24,904. Where, through you, Mr. Chair, would the remaining $82,000 go?
Through the chair, to us, the Sheriff's Office.
So through you, Mr. Chairman, that would just go to the general fund?
No, it will go to the grant fund, $9,300.
Thank you for clarifying that. Through you, Mr. Chairman, is there anything that this $82,000 is restricted to be used for moving forward?
Through the chair, the money is funneled through FEMA and Border Patrol. So we are assisting Border Patrol, so they pretty much, along with us. We determine where we're going to be patrolling.
Got you. So through you to the administration, the 82,000 then goes to additional projects or anything related to Border Patrol safety?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Thank you very much.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 19-0124.
Moved by legislator Taylor, seconded by legislator Draw. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 19-0126.
Moved by legislator Draw, seconded by legislator Rockow. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 19-0127.
Moved by legislator Rockow, seconded by legislator Ansello. Is there any discussion? Legislator Baroff.
Thank you. Through you to the administration, could you provide a brief description of what exactly is a baby cafe?
Through the chair, excuse me, a baby cafe is sort of like a drop-in center for breastfeeding women, but it's staffed by peer counselors who receive some additional training so that they can provide some support, instruction to moms who might be having some difficulty.
Mm-hmm. And through the chair of the administration, I know that there are, quote, scheduled locations where they're going to be held. What are these locations? Through the chair?
Through the chair, you see the locations here. So you're asking what exactly are those sites?
Where are the locations?
Oh, okay. They are, we have 3 locations currently at Women's Health Practice on Lattimore Road at Highland Hospital and at Alexander Park OB-GYN on Highland Avenue.
Thank you. So through the chair of the administration, none of these locations are on county-owned properties?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Through the chair of the administration, is it a desirable thing for them to expand the location numbers with the funding increasing and all that?
Through the chair, one of the objectives of strategically choosing sites is that we would like them to be sustainable after the grant ends. And one way of doing that, at no cost to the county, is to get buy-in from some local providers and practices, and so that's why those sites were chosen.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Whoops. Oh, I'm sorry. Legislator Cayley, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. That happened, because Senator Broth just does this with his hand. Through you to the administration, yeah, obviously for me, location with my district is important, but I also understand the buy-in. Could we get a breakdown through the chair of the mothers that are actually utilizing the breastfeeding cafes, baby cafes? I would just like to see some of these locations, or at least one in the next whenever, to happen in a more lower income neighborhoods or locations where we have health clinics as such. I'm stumbling over this, but through the chair, could we get an idea of the demographics of what are using the cafes?
Through the chair, I can get you that information. I don't have it at my fingertips.
Thank you. And then through the chair, are there any plans, if the opportunity arises with the grant money, that we could not place these in a more centrally city-centric area?
Through the chair, that is one of the things that we are constantly looking at. One of the considerations is trying to match it with some of our WIC locations, or maybe sort of alternate with WIC locations. For example, the Lattimore Road location is near one of our WIC locations, which meets on Mount Hope Avenue every Monday. And so, yes, we are looking at where we might move next if we have the opportunity.
Thank you for that. That's it.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 19-0128.
Moved by legislator Ansello, seconded by President Carbone. Legislator Morelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the administration, do we have any statistics as to how successful this program has been in terms of reducing the risk of HIV in Monroe County?
Through the chair, we have been successful in approximately 84% of the linking people back to care that have been out of care that have been exposed to HIV.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Legislator Felder.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the administration, what kind of methods do you employ? Are the clients being referred to like PrEP or other things, other preventive measures to
So there are a couple of different things we're doing. For partners that are out of care, and by that we mean 13 to 24 months, partners who have not been in care and should be in care, we get them back into care. For the index patient, we're actually providing direct treatment as well.
Okay, do you partner with any of the community organizations like MOCA or any of the other ones that deal with the at-risk populations?
We do, through the chair, we participate in a coalition of a number of partners. It's called McPete and MOCA. Trillium is one of the bigger members of that, but there's multiple partners that we work with, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 19-0129.
Moved by President Carbone, seconded by Legislator Taylor. Is there any discussion? Legislator Cayley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one or one and a half. Through you to the administration, it was answered when I was here that Compeer has been providing the services for this program. May I ask who else responded to the RFP? Were there any additional respondents to the RFP? Thank you.
Through the chair, there were. This year, the other respondent was the Veterans Outreach Center.
Thank you. And through the chair, could I get a copy of the, I forgot what you call it. I lost it. Huh? No, the scoring. That's the best I can come up with. Can I get copies of how you scored the award for this?
Through the chair, yes.
Thank you. That's all.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 19-0130.
Moved by Legislator Taylor, seconded by Legislator Draw. Is there any discussion? Legislator Barat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the administration, why is this project not included in the 2020-2025 CIP we just approved? Through the chair.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, this project was obtained through the federal funding through the Genesee Transportation Council, through various project applications that had been made several years ago. And as a result of us being in the the council and the state being in the last year of the federal program, there was some available money to start some design projects, and we applied through our previous applications and were successful. So it was not a program project for us, but it was representative of candidate roads that were previously applied for, and we received the funding.
Okay, so through the administration, but we're now amending the past CIP to add it in, but it won't be in next year's, will this current CIP then, through the chair?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the amendment is to accept the design money, and the future construction money will be part of the upcoming CIP.
but we
Not-
have yet to put it in, correct, through the chair?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, yes. At the time the current CIP was being prepared, we had not been known we were going to get this project, and as a result of the upcoming federal money, we will update the CIP accordingly.
So sometime in the near future, a month or two or so, we might get another revised CIP, correct, through the chair? Or
Through you,
some
Mr.
period of
Chairman,
time.
we will be updating it in the next round of the CIP from the 21 through, which starts in September. We'll be including it in that one for the 21 through 26.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? See none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 19-0131.
Moved by legislator Draw, seconded by legislator Rocco. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 19-0132.
Moved by legislator Rocco, seconded by legislator Ansello. Legislator Morelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Perhaps if Mr. Napier was here, we would have a better understanding of this. But through you, Mr. Chairman, this contract is for May 21st through May 26th. That's today. Is there a reason that we're not that this is just coming to us now?
Through the chair, for the sheriff, it was presented later than it should have been. That I have no other excuse for you other than I would call it administrative error.
Okay. Through you, Mr. Chairman, then since the PGA has begun, or again, Mr. Napier would know this better, is beginning, how are we going about handling the? Are we moving forward? Is this already started, even though we haven't approved it?
Yes, it has, and it has. Once again, this is grant money coming into us, so it's not an expenditure by the county, but we are going forward. And this, while trying not to make it a habit, and the time I've been here, this has happened on occasion where there's been a disconnect between the dates and the actual passing by the legislature. But yes, it is happening as we speak.
Okay. Through you, Mr. Chairman, you referenced that this is grant funded. Where's the grant money coming from?
The money is coming from the PGA to offset the cost of the additional duties that the sheriff's office is performing up to in the preparation and the undertaking of the tournament this week.
So through you, Mr. Chairman, then the PGA will pay the entire $85,000?
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Legislator Mafucci.
Thank you. Through the chair to the administration. So would you say all of that is par for the course?
I think it's, through the chair, I would say it's subpar.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 19-0134.
Moved by legislator Rocco, legislator Ansello, seconded by President Carbone. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Next item.
Referral 19-0135.
Moved by President Carbone, seconded by legislator Taylor. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Are there any other matters to come before this committee? There being no other matters, the May 21st, 2019 meeting of the Ways and Means Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Ways and Means Committee will be held on Tuesday, June 25th, 2019 at 6 p.m.